Ladies and gentlemen, you just got through hearing Greg Long. This man is a roaming and walking cornucopia of knowledge when it comes to this guy, Roger Patterson, and the crew and this film. He's just one major part. The other guy, that he's still alive today, I have all the respect in the world for him, and he's taken a lot of flack. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's go up to Yakima, Washington, the man that lives just a few doors down from Bob Gimlin, Mr. Bob Hieronymus. Bob, you out there?
Yes, I'm out here.
How are you this evening, good buddy?
Very good, thank you.
Well, I got to tell you, number one, thank you for being here with us. Number two, I am so sorry for what you've gone through, but you know what? I've been right there in the gutters with you because I've been tooting that flute and I've been hearing that song constantly from these people, these haters, these bashers, and they're just disillusioned, Bob. That's the only thing I can come up with.
Yes.
But we're
well,
going to get some
kind
of
restitution.
I assure you of that. So what I'd like for you to do, Bob, if you would, tell us the story on how Patterson or Gimlin came to you and asked you to wear this suit and what they asked you to do, how the whole thing came to play. Would you be kind enough to do that?
Sure. I'll tell you exactly how it happened. I ran around with Bob Gimlin for a while there. We broke a few horses and rode in the mountains quite a bit and chased a few cows. Him and Roger were good buddies. So Roger came up with this idea, about this Bigfoot thing. And, of course, Philip Morris sent him the suit. Well, Bob came to me one day and said, we're looking for a strong guy, that could wear this suit. He said, and not, tell anybody. So he said, if you'd come up there and put the suit on, and go to California and do the film, we'll give you $1,000. Well, I said, that's, I was 26 years old, single, and, $1,000 for a 10-minute film or whatever it was. Sure, I'll do that. So I went up to Roger's place up there on the South Fork of Tampico and tried the suit on, and he showed me how he wanted me to walk. Well, everybody says I walk that way anyway, so it was no problem, and he said that's just exactly the way I want it. So a while later, they came by. They were heading for California. They came by and picked up one of my horses and took off for California. And they said, "Well, meet us down there. Like this is on a Sunday. Meet us down there on a Wednesday at a gas station there in the little town there, and at 5 o'clock." So I took off out of here. It's about a 14-hour drive down there, and I pulled in there exactly at 5 o'clock. And Bob or Roger, I forgot. I think it was Bob, come over to the car and said, pull off. There's a pull off down the road here a ways. He said, go down there and wait for us. We don't want to have people seeing me talk to you, the three of us together. So I took off and went down the road there, and then pretty soon here they came. And like I say, we went up the Bluff Creek there. It wasn't very far. I had a car, so the road wasn't really, really bad. So we got up there where they had a camp set up, and we pulled off the road there and hid the car in a bunch of buckbrush. We piled a brush around it, so that nobody would see it from the road. And we went to sleep there, and the next morning we got up and saddled the horses and put the suit was in a big gunny sack. So Roger carried it behind his horse, and I jumped on behind Bob and my horse, and we rode up, I don't know, half a mile or whatever. And this is a place they had picked out when they first got there. And so they helped me put the suit on, and Roger said, okay, go over to this tree over here. And he said, when I tell you to start walking, do your walk. Well, he claimed that my horse was bucking, but my horse didn't know how to buck. But he jiggled the film up and down. That's why you see it was, jumping up and down. Anyway, he finally stopped, and as I was going by, and we had already determined when I would turn my head and look at him. and keep on walking. Well, so I kept on walking through there, and they stopped the film, and there was a big old blowed-off tree, over tree there. And I jumped down in that hole in that, and it was hot, you know. And I think it was around the end of September, around the 1st of October, right in that area. And I was sweating, my God, you know, it was terrible hot. And I was also afraid somebody was going to shoot me, you know, walking down through there. So I yelled, get this son of a bitch off me. And they come running over there and jerked the head of it off and then got me out of it. And we ended up going back to camp, and Roger handed me this envelope with a film in it. He said, take this to Eureka, California.
Before you do that, before you tell the audience about that, let's go back to the time that you were walking, before you took the hood off, and before you even came up there. He asked you to do something. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but he says to you, do you still have that thing that was between your there's two things above your nose there. What do you call those? Your
eyes, man.
Your eyes. There you go. And what did he ask you to do?
I have a prosthesis eye, and I had 2 or 3 extra ones, and that was my suggestion. I said, okay, Roger, when I turn to look at you, if you would take one of these eyes and mold it in the right side, when I turn to look at you, this eye will be looking right straight at you. And sure enough, you know, he said, that's a hell of an idea. And he went ahead and put the molded eye in there. And as you can see on the film in the close-up, my right eye is protruding out so you can see it. And the left eye is sunk back in there, ½ inch or inch or whatever is inside.
That's the one that glistens in the sun, right?
That was my prosthesis eye.
Okay. And I'm glad you brought that out to the audience, because a lot of people have been asking.
Nobody knew this for a long time. In fact, Greg Long finally wriggled it out of me. You know, I wasn't going to tell anybody. That was my kind of a what you call ace in the hole. But you got your scientists and all those guys would take a look at that. That you know they think they're a little bit different.
So, who helped you on with the waders to make the hips and the padding, the pillow in the back by the butt?
I sat down on a log and pushed my feet in, you know, into the suit like I don't know, we put on a snowmobile suit or something, and then I zipped it up in the back and combed the hair across it, you know, zipper, and then they put the last part was the head went on.
What about the shoulder pads?
The shoulder pads were no football shoulder pads they got from high school up here. Some beat up ones. So.
Okay. And what about?
And then if you really look.
You what?
If you really look at the film on my right hip, you'll see a square little thing sitting down there. That was my damn wallet sticking out. Well, you know, these scientists can't figure that out, or you know, so.
Let me ask you this: how did you make the arms look so much longer going down there too?
They were the arms were longer than my arms. He put some like a glove inside there, you know, and a stop where when my hand come down to touch them, they were 6, 8, 10 inches longer, or whatever it was in my real arms. Those were just extensions on there.
Okay. All right. So now after they stopped filming, and we found out now this film did not get shot. It was either at the end of September or the 1st of October, so it was not shot on the 20th of October like they said.
They said they shot it on the 20th of October, which I don't think it was. But they also said that they showed the film in L.D. Utley's house on October the 20th. How could that be when the film had to go to California to get developed, supposedly, and sent back to Al?
Now, that's correct. Now, ladies and gentlemen, listen to the time factor here, okay? It don't jive. So who was the one that took that film and put it to the post office to get sent off to get developed?
I don't know. I took the film to Eureka, California, and mailed it to L.D. Utley.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So
and I could have beat
right?
I could have beat it back, the film back, and delivered it before the mail could, really. But
okay, so you're the one. After the film was taken, they gave it to you in your trusty hands to go
I took it to Eureka, California, and mailed it to Al. Yes.
That's right. So you went to Eureka, California, to the post office. Is that correct?
Right.
And you mailed it to his brother-in-law, Al Diatley, back in Washington.
Right.
Okay? And that was supposedly around that time. So it would be, if the timeline was the end of September, ladies and gentlemen, see if you can follow this story, or the 1st of October. Now it's 3 weeks later. Okay? It's the 20th of October. They were watching that in Diatley's home, and then this big press conference came out. Oh, my God, look what we shot today. Is that correct?
That's correct, but how could it be filmed on the 20th and shown on the 20th at his house?
That's the whole point, and that's what I'm trying to put in perspective to my audience around the globe, and you're doing a very eloquent job. So when that was all done, where did you go from Eureka, California? Did you go back to Washington?
Yes, I come straight home. Yes.
Okay. Did he pay you the money?
No, I've never got a dime from him. No. But,
did you question him
a couple days later, they showed up.
When are you going to come across with the glue magoo?
Pardon?
Did you ever question Roger or Bob Gimlin and say, hey, when are you going to come across with my money?
Oh, yeah. Me and another kid that saw the suit in the trunk of the car, I didn't tell anybody what that was. I just said, look at this and don't forget what it looks like. Well, they finally figured out, well, that's where you've been for the last, that's a couple of weeks later, they said, that's where you were for 2 or 3 days, huh? Anyway, Waylon Jennings, the Western singer?
Yeah.
Waylon Jennings?
Yeah.
Was having a concert down here in town. Well, we went down there. Me and a bunch of guys from around here, or by us. And Al Diatley was there, and we were out there dancing, and the dance was over. I asked Al, I said, hey, Al, when you guys ever going to pay me my $1,000? And he said, that's between you and Roger. And that was the end of the conversation.
Yeah. Okay. That's phenomenal, and thank you for being so honest. Same story you've told me.
Well, then, when I mail the film, I come home. Well, a couple of days later, they showed up, brought my horse back. Well, they got in the trunk of the car. Well, it wasn't locked or anything, and the keys were in the car, and nobody locked their car around there in them days. And they took the suit out and dropped my horse off, took the suit out, and that's the last I saw of the suit.
Okay. So, let me ask you this. Have you made any money off of the Roger Patterson footage besides the promise of getting $1,000 of wearing the suit, which you never received?
I've never made one dime off that film.
So what do you got to gain by coming out and telling to the world the truth on this film?
Probably nothing, but I just want people to know the truth. That was the biggest hoax.
Now, I understand that you took 2 lie detector polygraph tests. Is that correct?
Right. I took a lie detector test down in the Yakima Police Department. A lieutenant named Jim McCormick was a lie detector guy down there. And I passed that and never missed anything, and not one question. Well, he said guys like us out here don't lie anyway. But and then here, a few years back, I forgot what year it was, maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago, there was this show on television called Lie Detector. This F. Lee Bailey, the famous attorney.
Yes.
Had that show, and they invited me down there, and I took this Ed Gelb, which was a world famous lie detector guy. He was there. He gave me the lie detector test, and as again, I didn't miss any, or everything was true. So I was on that television show. One episode of it, yes.
I got to tell you something, Bob. Again, I want to apologize to you for all of the injustice that you've gone through this whole thing set out to be, I don't know, a game, a joke, a hoax, call it what you want, and it's blown up in people's face, in which it's become an icon in reality in this damn business, and it backfired on a few people. Now, there's this famous picture, and ladies and gentlemen, you can see that if you go to the Hoax of the Century on BigfootLive.com. Now, there's a picture of you on a horse, then the guy that looks like an Indian. Is that Gimlin?
Yes, that was Bob Gimlin. He was with us up there at Tampico. We were supposed to be chasing through the woods and horseback, a bunch of us.
Okay, and then the one next to Hieronymus looks like it's your brother, Howard.
My brother Howard was there.
Okay, and then there's a guy named Jerry Merritt.
Jerry Merritt. I think he was there, yes.
I've seen him on a horse. And then another guy named John Ballard, and next to John
was there,
Roger
yes.
Patterson.
And Roger, yes.
Yeah, okay, so there was a total of 2, 4, 6 of you.
I think so, yeah, right around there. That was 45, 50 years ago,
That's correct. Here, another guy that comes into play, and the name keeps coming up, is a guy named John Green. You remember that name?
Yeah. He's an asshole as far as I'm concerned.
So he was another one that was intertwined in this, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. I don't remember exactly how he was into this thing, but him and then DeHend, and there was 3 or 4 of those guys, that.
I remember it well.
Okay, thank you for having me on your show.
Now, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the man that sold the suit to Roger Patterson. His name is Philip Morris. He's under the weather, but he's given a good friend of mine, a new friend of mine and ours, a guy named Michael Green, who wrote the book, Sasquatch for Sale. We're going to have him do 2 things. We're going to have him talk about the role that Philip Morris played, number 1, and then his own role that he did in his making of his book about the people in the Bigfoot field, and his book's named Sasquatch for Sale. Without any further ado, let's get out there to North Carolina and talk to my newfound friend, my brother, Michael Green. Michael, you out there?
Yes, I am.
How are you this evening?
Just fine, thank you. Just fine.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, he is our newfound friend. He's the author of the book, the Sasquatch for Sale. He was with us last week when we were there to see Philip Morris and his lovely bride, Amy, and his family, the son and his daughter, and toured the plant. Why don't you tell everybody how gracious Philip Morris was to us, and when you finally got to meet him, along with my crew that haven't met him yet, and when you walked away, what did you walk away with?
Well, I walked away with my head spinning for any number of reasons. First off, the guy is incredibly talented. Talent doesn't even fit here. This guy's an absolute genius when it comes to making costumes, which was a sideline of his back in the 60s when he was a traveling magician. And there was a show that magicians did, a trick, if you will, called The Girl and the Gorilla. And this was sort of a standard trick where a girl would go into a closet and emerge immediately as a gorilla, and then the gorilla would jump out of the closet and run through the crowd, scaring everybody because they didn't expect this to happen. Morris, at the time, realized that the only way that people could get gorilla suits at the time was you had to buy them from overseas, and they cost a lot of money. So being a clever and industrious guy, he and his wife Amy began making gorilla suits to sell to magicians in the United States. And at the time, they were charging $400 or $500 for them. And they advertised, and this is important, they advertised these suits in a magazine, which now, of course, I can't remember the name of, but this magazine was distributed throughout all the circuses and sideshows and theaters and rodeos throughout the United States, advertising. And in Greg Long's book, there's a picture of the page advertising these gorilla suits. Anyway, I want to jump to the present for a minute. When I first met Philip Morris, which was, I guess it was last week or the week before, his factory looks like it was built to make B-29s or something. It's one of the biggest buildings I ever saw in my life, and I'm not exaggerating. It's hundreds of yards long, over 1 million square feet. This is the largest costume country in the United States and one of the largest in the whole world. This guy doesn't need money from anybody, believe me. He has made an absolute fortune and is still making it today. He took us in and introduced us to his wife, and we began a tour of the inner part of the factory warehouse, really, where they store these millions of different items. And she took us into the designer's office where their designer works up various costumes, and you could see they're all over them, and there's hundreds of these things. Every science fiction or horror movie you've ever seen in your entire life, and I'm going way back to Dr. Sardonicus and The Tingler in the late 50s. I mean, way back, right up into Terminator and Alien costumes he made. Absolutely the coolest things I've ever seen in my life. I mean, really, really neat. Anyway, in one corner of one of the rooms was this giant Bigfoot, and the giant Bigfoot was much bigger than the Patterson Gimlin suit. This thing was maybe 9 feet tall. I'm 6'5", and I stood next to it, and it towered over me. However, next to it on the table were 4 or 5 what I would call Bigfoot sculpture heads in various sort of Neanderthal, monkey, ape, human, different combinations. And then next to that on a chair was an empty, dark brown Bigfoot or gorilla suit. Sitting that on a chair next to that was a set of shoulder pads. And Philip Morris pointed and he said, that's a copy of, this here is one of the gorilla suits that I made, and it's exactly the same one that I sold Roger Patterson. And I said, oh, really? Can you tell me about this? And he said, yeah. He said, I got a phone call. This is back in August of 1967 from a guy who said he wanted to buy a gorilla suit. And Philip Morris said, I remember asking him, oh, are you a magician? And Patterson told him, no, I'm a, quote, rodeo cowboy. And indeed, Patterson had been doing some rodeo stuff, and that he wanted the film for a joke. So Philip had one of these suits. He and Amy were whipping them up in the basement, and it took them a week or two to make one. And they used a material which you can still get today, apparently, called Dynel, D-Y-N-E-L, which is a sort of a nylon fake hair, which is woven into cloth, and it's used for plush pillows and like toy bears and toilet seats and this sort of stuff. But when you dye it dark brown, it looks like Bigfoot hair or whatever, monster hair, gorilla hair in this case. And he explained to us in lengthy detail how he made the suit. He didn't bother to explain it to Patterson. But Patterson said, well, look, and this is a typical Patterson kind of pattern. Patterson said, well, look, why don't you send me the suit, and if I like it, I'll pay you for it. And if I don't, I'll send it back. And Morris laughed and said, no. I said, why don't you pay me for the suit first, and I'll send it to you. If you don't like it, send it back, and I'll refund your money. And in retrospect, this sounds so Patterson-ish in his dealings with people. Anyway, Patterson came up with the money. He sent him the suit, and a couple days later, Patterson called him back and he said, "Listen, the eyes in this thing, there's holes there where the guy who wears the costume's got to look through, and what do I do about that? Because my skin appears pale in comparison to the darkness of the face." And Morris, who'd been doing this stuff for years, said, "Well, look, I'm going to send you some black makeup, and you put makeup all around your eyes and your nose and your forehead, and then close your eyelids and have your eyelids painted black too, so that when you blink, there isn't a flash of white. Just a little detail." So Patterson thanked him, and then called him back another day or two later and said, "Listen, what can we do about these feet? And I need to bulk it up." And Morris said, "Well, go down to the football equipment place, get yourself a set of shoulder pads, and that'll bulk up the shoulders really nicely. And I'm going to send you a little, some extra Dynel fur that we've got lying around that you can glue here and there," because Patterson didn't like the face. He said the face looked too gorilla-ish. And Morris, when he saw, I'm jumping back here a little bit, when Morris first saw the film on TV, the Roger Patterson Gimlin film on TV, he said he started laughing hilariously, and he called to his wife and he said, Amy, come here, look, there's my suit on TV." And Amy came in and said, "Yeah," and the two of them started roaring with laughter that somebody had pulled this off and that he recognized the suit they made. There were very, very few other people even making these suits in America. You could buy them from overseas, but not in America. Anyway, the issue came down. Another issue was, how do I make the arms longer? And if you look at an arm, if you make the hand longer from the elbow down, then when you bend the arm, it's going to look weird because the forearm and the hand are going to be way out of proportion longer than the upper arm going into the shoulder. However, if you add 4 inches or 5 inches, say, with shoulder pads, and then add 4 or 5 inches of glove to the bottom, then the elbow joint appears to be in proportion, roughly in the middle, and it doesn't look like a suit. It looks like just the way it should, and just the way it does in the film. So there was a long discussion, and he picked up the suit and he pointed, this is how I did this, and this is where we sewed in the 36-inch zipper in the back. And the zipper they use if you've ever had a convertible, and I don't know if the new ones, but the old convertibles you zippered in the vinyl rear window, and it was a heavy, heavy-duty zipper, not like you'd get on the fly of your pants, a real heavy-duty zipper. And he said, that's the zipper we used there. And Patterson said, well, look, I can see the zipper, which, of course, is sort of a comic line, and everybody's heard that one before. And Morris said, well, look, you got to take a brush and just, whoever puts the suit on, you take a brush and brush the hair down so that it covers the zipper. Morris said that when Morris did the monkey or gorilla suits in his act, he would brush the hair backwards so that it all stuck up all crazy, more like a sort of an unkempt-looking gorilla. But that Patterson had it all combed down, looking kind of neat, if you will. But it pretty much covered the zipper. Then there was some discussion about the feet, and that Morris said, well, my feet actually were slippers, slipper-like things, because this suit was one size fits all, and the length of the arm was longer than need be, and so were the length of the legs, because you couldn't make these suits in different sizes. and then you could always cut off the material as you needed if you were shorter. Well, Hieronymus is, I think, 6'1", and he's a bulky guy, and you shove him a couple of shoulder pads in there and a wallet in his right thigh pocket, and things are looking pretty good. But when you get down to the feet, he had to make feet that were big enough to fit everybody, and Philip said, well, my feet were about, the slippers were 14 inches long. That's a big slipper. I've got size 12 feet, and I'm holding my hand up here. And a 14-inch slipper is going to give you a pretty good big footprint. However, the bottom of the slippers was not made to resemble the bottom of a gorilla or Bigfoot foot. And when you look at there's a few frames in the Patterson-Gimlin film where you see the bottom of the feet, and they look flat, and they look more rectangular than foot-like. And I asked him, why didn't you just make them look like a gorilla? And he said, well, the first of all, the gorillas have their big toe sticks way out in front, and it would be very awkward to walk in, and that most gorilla suits were worn by magicians who were working up on a stage so that the audience who's sitting a little bit below is looking slightly upwards at the gorilla, and they really most of the time they don't even see the gorilla's feet, so it really wasn't important that the bottom of the foot be at all, look like a gorilla. It really didn't matter. So he used these big slippery-like things that you could just anybody could shove their feet in, and if their feet slopped around in them, they would shove tissue paper in the toes until it made for a nice snug fit. Anyway, he showed us this suit, and he's going through these one pieces of evidence after another, and I'm looking at this suit, I'm looking at this big picture of the Patterson-Gimlin film on the wall, and I'm looking back at the suit, and I'm handling this Dynel fur and looking at this zipper, and I'm saying, son of a bitch. And just like Tom was saying, that movie sucked me in really good, and in a perverse way, I gotta thank Roger Patterson, because he did a good enough job to suck in a whole generations of Bigfoot lovers, researchers, whatever you want. The fact that it's a fake is really unfortunate. He did a pretty good job, because he certainly fooled me for years and years and years. But when you meet Philip Morris and you see that suit, I walked away from there just shaking my head, laughing at myself, laughing at everybody else, and just it was a wonderful experience. That guy was incredible.
Well, I want to thank you very much. You tell the story just like you were, Philip Morris. And ladies and gentlemen, if those of you who know Philip, those of you who have met Philip, you know what we're saying is straight on, spot on. The guy is a pillar of his community.
Well, let me jump in here, Tom, and say, not only is he a pillar of his community and an extremely nice guy, but he is absolutely filthy rich. I mean, the last thing he needs is any publicity. This is small potatoes to him. He was just looking back at this thing that happened so many years ago and chuckling that it all turned out the way it